Hello everyone. I'm continuing to talk about the Dhammapada today and continuing from yesterday, actually talking about a few more verses from the section on the thousands. So verse 110 says, "Better than 100 years of uncontrolled existence is one day of thoughtful and meditative life." I'll say that again. Better than 100 years of uncontrolled existence is one day of thoughtful and meditative life. So that verse gets me thinking, how uncontrolled are my days? Uh, and yes, certainly some of them are. And by uncontrolled, I mean it's a bit like we wander through life without purpose sometimes. We're not always purposeful. We're not always guided with what's best for us or what's most creative. That would be a better way to put it, really. What's creative? And often we get caught up in a lot of things that maybe aren't so creative. Maybe a television program finishes that we wanted to watch and we just sit there and watch the next thing, for example. Maybe we don't just immediately turn off the television and do something more useful. It's a bit like we get very sluggish and lazy in life. And I think that's because we, we perceive of life as being rather endless. We don't realise its brevity. We don't realise that actually this is a precious day. And, often we're not in control of our emotions. And maybe we flare up at the least little thing. Maybe we get irritated and angry. Or maybe we're drawn to amuse ourselves. We're drawn to distractions a lot of the time. And it's not that any of those things, taken in isolation, are a big problem. But the problem is being unaware that that's going on, that that's what's driving us, that that's maybe occupying quite a lot of our life. That actually maybe for much of the time we're not very aware. Emotions are arising and we're just responding with kind of automatic responses, our habitual responses. So in that way, we kind of wander through life in a very uncontrolled way when we're not aware. So awareness is the key. The more that we're aware, the more that we're going to be vigilant and on the ball of realising maybe what I'm doing now isn't very creative. And that doesn't mean we've got to kind of be active all the time. Sometimes I recognise that I'm sort of on a roll with doing things. I'm on a roll with sorting out emails and, getting on, as it were. And then I'll realise that I'm on this kind of roll of work, of doing things, and I'll just stop and look out of the window. Or, I'll put Tashi on my hand and just look at him for 15 minutes. It's taking time to be mindful and to take in, these early summer days that are just beautiful, and because we've got time to notice them. I mean, I know some of you are very busy trying to work from home, maybe look after kids and so on. But actually, we must all find time and to just stop. Yeah. Is one day of thoughtful and meditative life. So this reminds me of just how strong the karmic consequences are of meditation and of being aware. So, as you probably know, karma is weighted differently, and it has different weights. And there's a set of yes, the strengths of karma, depending, for example, on weighty karma is like murder, and particularly killing a Buddha or your parents. So that's the most weighty karma. And the least, the most positive karma that we can have is meditation, is being aware. That is the most positive karma that we can have. There's death proximate karma. What's the state of our mind as we're dying? And that one's very important to me, because I definitely see my Buddhist practice as being a preparation for death, as being an awareness around my impending death. And, at my age, I'm aware it could come any time. So I don't take it for granted that I'm going to get very old, or that I'm going to escape death in any way for any more years than the years I've already got to. But death proximate karma, the kind of states of mind that we're in when we come to that point, whether we're fearful, whether we're regretful. And for me, it's really important not to have regrets, to be able to apologise when I make mistakes, to really understand my weaknesses, obviously, of which I have many, but it's about knowing them and really working on them, trying to be kinder and more aware, trying to be more loving and compassionate in the world to other people. So yeah, that's very, very important to me, that I am going to be able to die as well as I can. And sometimes I've heard quite a number of Buddhists say that, in order, they want to be really aware when they die, and therefore they don't want to have any drugs interfering with that process and so on. Well, I don't actually go along with that for myself, because personally I think that if you're in a lot of pain, if you're in a lot of pain, you're not going to be able to be very aware, unless you're probably almost enlightened. So pain is very all-consuming, particularly if it's very severe. So basically, I don't think there's any merit in not having pain relief, because the less pain you're experiencing, the more aware you're going to be, the more positive states you're going to be in, and the more relaxed you're going to be. So personally, I'll take a bit of analgesia if I need it when I'm dying. The verse after that says, "Better one day of wise and thoughtful life than 100 years of folly and thoughtlessness." So that's very similar to the previous verse, isn't it? Wise and thoughtful life. So yeah, that reminds me of how much we need to reflect on the Dharma. It's no good reading loads of books, You can read 100 books on Buddhism and you won't be any the wiser, really. I mean, apart from anything else, you probably won't even remember. You won't even remember what you've read. It's what we take in and absorb into the deepest ranges of our mind. We need to let the Dharma really penetrate into us. So reflection is very important. And there are many ways that we can reflect, and I'm pleased to say that Jnana Shalin is going to do a course shortly on reflection, on how we can reflect, ways of reflection. There's lots can be said about that. So I'm delighted that he's going to be doing a course. The next verse says, "Better one day of energy and determination than 100 years of idleness." I think this is a very important verse, because it reminds us that virya, or energy in pursuit of the good, is really important. So we misuse our energy in all sorts of ways. So we blow a lot of energy, you know, maybe getting overexcited, maybe in gossip, maybe in anger. We just blow a lot of energy, basically. And energy is very important for the spiritual life, for any kind of creative life. So, yeah, I was very struck by Arloka saying recently about how much energy it takes for him to do his artwork. It takes an enormous amount of energy. I think he said that it took more energy than some of the physical work he's done when he was young. You know, I think it was building work. So we need energy to practice meditation. Now that might sound really strange, that we need energy to practice meditation when we're sitting there peacefully in a quiet space, mindfully aware, but it does, because we're used to being distracted. We're used to being very dissipated. So to draw all our energy into a focus is, you know, as you've probably found out, is not as easy as it sounds. And it's wonderful when we've got free-flowing positive energy. That's what we're looking for, free-flowing positive energy that we can... I was thinking it makes us whole in a way. It's not a pleasant experience being dissipated and having all these different selves that we have kind of fighting each other, you know, with guilt, with fear, with all sorts of things. You know, a bit of us wants to meditate maybe, and a bit of us doesn't, or a bit of us thinks we've got other things that are more important. You know, we're split a lot of the time. So yeah, finding our wholeness and using energy within that is really important. So I'm going to leave it there for today. See you tomorrow.